So today we're going to talk about the Pythagorean theorem. And midpoint. So the Pythagorean theorem states that for every right triangle, with legs A and B, and hypotenuse side C A squared plus B squared will always equal C squared. So a right triangle has one right angle, and there's the symbol for it, the red half of a box down here in the corner. So that's 90, symbol for 90 degrees. It's a vertical line intersecting a horizontal line. The lines are perpendicular, they intersect at 90. The two segments that make up that 90-degree angle are called legs. And this right triangle has two of them. You always label those sides A and B. It's interchangeable. The side across from the 90, the diagonal side of a right triangle, is called the hypotenuse. It's always side C and the longest. So we call it C. Everybody caught up? Okay, so here's how this works. If you're given a segment on the coordinate plane, and let's make one of the endpoints -3, 9, and the other endpoint 8, -2. The first thing I do, this right now doesn't look exactly like that, does it? But if you add two more lines to it, it will. If you add a vertical, or drop a vertical, and then pencil in a horizontal, you just created a right triangle. You can label your sides A, B, and C. And now watch, this side A is vertical, isn't it? And the y-axis is vertical. So what's the difference in 9 and -2? How much did you change?
11.
You went 11 units. So this leg is 11 units long. Your horizontal axis corresponds to your horizontal leg of this triangle. And it goes from -3 to 8. So looky there. How long is that?
11.
That's 11 as well. So now you just go to the formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now, you guys that have purchased the calculator that I asked you to, you're almost done. You type 11 and the x squared button, and you push plus 11 and the x squared button again, and you push equals. 242? What does it say? 267? I thought 11 squared was 121. 242, yeah. 11x squared plus 11x squared, 242 equals c squared. Leave it sitting there. Leave it sitting there on the screen. You're going to square root both sides to get rid of this exponent. Push the button that looks like the square root symbol on the calculator. Should be right next to the x squared. 15.5 what? 5, 5. Set your calculator to second fix 2. Green button, period button, number 2. Second fix 2. That'll round everything 2 decimal places for you. And what does it say? 15.56. Now everybody's got the same answer. And that's equal to C. So there's your segment length. 15.5 segment units. 15.56 units, whatever the unit measure is. And you can verify it. It's supposed to be the longest side, right? Is it? It's longer than both the 11s. Questions? No, it should be sitting on your screen, right? Because you did 11 squared. All right, there's a button that looks like this, real close to your x squared button. Push that. And does it for you, right? Okay. Good?
Yeah, it's always in near 100.
Say again?
It's in near 100.
Yeah, let's just leave everything rounded 2 decimal places unless you're told differently. So if you don't know where to round, we're rounding 2 places. If a quiz question says round to the nearest 10th, then change it. Okay? Otherwise, we're on the nearest 100th. So everybody good on turning that segment into a right triangle? Okay? If you were given, what if you're, say you're just given this segment out in the middle of nowhere. And it's got some coordinates. There's 2 ways to turn this into a right triangle, isn't there? You can go here and here. It's a right triangle, isn't it? Or you can do it this way. And it's a right triangle. The black line is still the hypotenuse. You're still doing vertical change plus horizontal change squared, right? Let's just say this is on the coordinate plane. Let's say that this was at 1, 4, and this was at 15, 18. What's our vertical change? This is not to scale at all. How much are we changing vertically?
14.
We're going from 4 to 18, right? Yeah, so 14. What's our change horizontally? 14. How did I do that twice in a row? I don't know. Okay? Everybody understanding where those 2 legs are coming from? So this would be 14 squared plus 14 squared. 392? Square root of 392? Okay. A little quicker?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so any questions on using the Pythagorean theorem to find the length of a segment? Turn it into a right triangle. Use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. They are your vertical change. Vertical change comes from the difference in your y values. The difference between 18 and 4 is 14. Horizontal change comes from the difference in the x values. The difference between 1 and 15 is 14 as well. Because your legs are always the horizontal and the vertical.
But you don't need to find the horizontal.
You need them both. You need the two legs.
Oh, right.
In this case, unfortunately, in both examples, they were the same. They're not going to be. Most of the time, they're not going to be. My brain is randomly picking numbers that have the same difference. What? Pythagorean theorem. Yeah, this is just a real quick version of this. Skipped a bunch of steps. The point I was trying to make is how much simpler it is once you get used to it. All right? All right, so let's talk about midpoint. And this is on a number line. So today you're going to be given a segment. A might be at negative 11. C is at, I do that every time. C might be a 3. Midpoint is equal to, what does midpoint mean? Middle. Midpoint, middle, the middle point of the 2 points. How do you find the middle of two numbers?
Find the difference.
Add them up and divide by 2, right? Middle is the same as average. So x sub 1 plus x sub 2 and divided by 2. So in this case, you got negative 11 plus 3, and you're going to divide it by 2. What's negative 11 plus 3? Negative 8 divided by 2 equals negative 4. So if you're asked to find the midpoint of AC, the midpoint is going to be at negative 4. It's in the middle. Makes these pieces congruent. Questions? Midpoint on the coordinate plane. Okay, so in this case, your midpoint, your x, y values at the midpoint are going to be equal to. All you're doing now is the midpoint formula twice. You're doing it once for your x's and once for your y's. So it looks like x sub 1 plus x sub 2 divided by 2. That gives you your x at the midpoint. And then you do y sub 1 plus y sub 2, and you divide it by 2. And that gives you your y value at the midpoint. So if you're given a segment, I'm not even going to put it on a coordinate plane. I'm going to ask you to find the midpoint of A, which is at -3, -8, and C, which is at 5, 7. I still like to label the coordinates. I like to call this x1 and y1 and x2 and y2, just to avoid mistakes. So then our x at the midpoint is going to be equal to -3 plus 5 divided by 2. Yeah, it's going to be 2 divided by 2, right? So our x value at the midpoint is 1. Our y value at the midpoint is going to be equal to -8 plus 7 divided by 2. And that's -1/2. All right, so our midpoint is going to be located at 1, -1/2. Those two are super related, right? You just, on the number line, you're doing it once. On the coordinate plane, you're doing it twice because points on the coordinate plane have an x and a y coordinate. Now we got to take this formula and we have to apply it to finding an endpoint when you're given a midpoint and the other endpoint. You with me? So this is going to be finding an endpoint given one endpoint and the midpoint. Find an endpoint given one endpoint and the midpoint, but that's not written very good. So let's say endpoint A is at -7, 5, and midpoint P is at 6, 9. Find endpoint B.
It doesn't matter where the endpoint is, right? On the left or right side.
You're given an end and you're given the middle and you're asked to find the other end. Right? So I'm going to show you how to do it using the midpoint formula, and then I'm going to show you a real fast way just using common sense. All right? The midpoint formula said that the midpoint equals x1 plus x2 divided by 2, right? Well, if you substitute, you've got two of these three variables. To find x at the other endpoint, you would substitute. The x value at the midpoint is 6. So 6 equals x sub 1, which is -7, plus your other endpoint x divided by 2. Does everybody see what happened? Look, when we were finding the midpoint, this was your midpoint value, right? and we inserted the two endpoint x's. Now we're given the midpoint, right? Midpoint's at 6, 9. So we're going to substitute the 6 for the midpoint x and substitute the negative 7 for the x sub 1, because we need the x sub 2. We need the other x value at the end. So now you can just multiply by 2. So 12 equals negative 7 plus x sub 2. And then add 7 to each side. I don't know I don't know. What does it say up there? You're adding 7 to each side, so 12 plus 7 is 19 equals x sub 2. There's your other x value. At the end, right? You know the beginning x. Here's your beginning x. Right there, beginning x. Middle x. Now here's your end point x. So now you repeat for the y. You're just substituting. So let's do the y. The y at the midpoint is 9 equals y sub 1, which is 5, plus y sub 2, which is what you're trying to find, divided by 2. Same process for solving. Multiply by 2. So 18 equals 5 plus y sub 2. And subtract 5 from each side. And 13 equals your y sub 2, which is your other endpoint. So point B is going to be located at 19, 13. Who said I lost him? All right, well then you're gonna love the shortcut. Super short. All right, so has everybody got that? I can't hear you. Let's talk about the shortcut. The shortcut. Find the endpoint. Given. You're going to be given an end. What was the end that you were just given? What were those coordinates? 6. No. I need the first endpoint that I gave you. Negative 7, 5. And then I gave you a midpoint, and it was
6, 9.
Thank you, 6, 9. And we asked for the other end. We already know what it is, right? But we saw what we did to get it. Here's the shortcut. If you're going from the end to the middle, won't the same distance be from the middle to the end? How far is it from negative 7 to 6?
1.
It's 11. Going up or down? You're going up 11, so go up 11 from 6. Where does that put you?
17.
Puts you at 17. Yeah, you think? If you're going from 5 to 9, where are you going and how many? You're going up 5, up 4. So go up 4 more from 9. Where does that put you? Which way is quicker? You just need to know what direction you're going, up or down, and how many. That's all that matters, right? So let's say we're at negative 11, 6. That's an end, right? Our middle is at negative 5, negative 9. We need the other end. So when you're going from negative 11 to negative 5, how many are you going? You're going 6. Are you going up or down? I'm going up. I'm getting bigger, right? So I'm getting bigger by 6. So what's 6 bigger than negative 5? 1. If I'm going from 6 to -9, how far and what direction? Down. How many?
15.
17.
Well, you could always do it in your calculator. You can do 6 minus -9.
15.
It's 15. And then you got to go down 15 more. Right? So you'd be at -24.
Wait, how did you get 17?
Because I asked the class, how far is it from -7 to 6? And that is 13 units, positive 13 units. So 6 plus 13. Wait a minute,
Yeah,
what
it's
happened?
supposed to be 19.
It's supposed to be 19
Yeah, I don't know.
there. Thank you. Does that make sense now?
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, I was about that.
So we added 13 more, and we got to the 19. Same on the y's, right? 5 to 9 plus 4. Take the 9 plus 4 is 13.
The arrows you put make it more confusing.
What's that?
The arrows make it more confusing.
Okay. The arrows make it more confusing. Then don't put the arrows in your notes. There you go. I don't know, I just think it's a super shortcut and it's really simple. If you just say, I went down this many, I got to go down this many more. If you're not sure how many you went down, just subtract the numbers. Okay? And then go down the same or up the same. Questions? Need to see another one? Here's your practice for today.